ready to start. Our stream is live. Hello, welcome everyone to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. I'm Marie Hopkinson. I'm a herbalist, acupuncturist, and on this stream I'm going to answer subscriber questions. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. I do these at different times to help to connect with people all over the world. So hopefully this will reach you in the UK. It's probably in the morning for you. Maybe it's later at night somewhere else in the world. And welcome. So maybe put in the chat where you're from if you're jumping in here. I'm going to get started with a question that someone asked me during the week. And I've prepared a little bit about this, and then it got me thinking about another whole topic that I could do as we do. I'm just going to check the audio is good on this. Just give me 1 sec. I've got to play it back. Okay, great. Perfect. I just always worry that the audio might not be loud enough from this microphone. So we're going to talk about the spiritual resources, the Po. This will be the first question. I'm just going to pop that question up on the screen now. So this will be question 1. And I'll give you a bit of a background about where this sits in Chinese medicine, and then we'll specifically just talk about this thing, this particular aspect. So you probably heard me talk about the 5 elements before. So that's one of the ways that Chinese medicine understands our physiology, our physical body, through the environment, like its interaction between the environment. But also that is one of the ways that we understand. Oh my goodness, I've just realised that this is. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this in the midst of all the things I've done here. Perfectly got it. Okay, right. I've just snapshotted a few things here. So we understand our body. Now you might not be able to see this question too easily, but I'll pop it on here anyway. So this is to talk about the Po. Now, before we get into this, I'll just give you a quick overview of where this sits in the philosophy of Chinese medicine. So they have these things called spiritual resources, which are attributed, each element has that. So we have the Hun, which is the ethereal soul, the Po, which is the corporeal soul, or the bodily soul, sometimes just described as that, and the Zhe, which is your willpower, your Shen, your that's a bigger concept to kind of explain what a Shen is. So I won't go into that, but it can be your mental, emotional functions. It can encompass all of those things. So this concept of the Po, so someone has just asked, can I know a bit more about that? Can you tell me a bit more about that? Which I'm happy to do that. So I did prepare a little bit of stuff about this, and then it got me thinking maybe I'll do a series on these things, like go through all the spiritual resources. So the Po, or the corporate, it's an aspect of the soul. In Chinese medicine, they have these 2 aspects. Like one is called the ethereal soul, which is more, well, the name implies ethereal, right? It's more spirit than anything bodily, whereas the Po is considered the part of the soul that's the most connected to the physical body. And they believe that when you pass away, when you die, one part of the soul would stay with the body and die with the body, and that's the Po. And the other part of the soul is the part that would live on, or go, wherever it goes, depending on what your belief system is there. So the Po is linked to the metal element, and the organs that are linked to the metal element are the lungs and the large intestine. Now, we don't really hear much about the Po being connected to the large intestine, but we do think about a lot of the connections to the lungs. If you're just joining into the stream now, feel free to ask any questions that you'd like to, and we'll come to them. I just usually start with a question to get the ball rolling. And if you want to ask a question, or another good thing people can do is share the stream if you've got Chinese medicine friends that are into this kind of stuff, or you might be just like a lone ranger super into this by yourself. So let's think about what how do we think about the Po? What does it connect to? And also what I did is a little bit of research about what essential oils you can use for some of these aspects. I think that those are quite useful when we think about what it does, because this is kind of leading us more to some of the, either we could say mental, emotional functions, the more esoteric functions, the more things that are like the less substantial things, but they're still important aspects of how our body functions. So one of the things the Po relates to is instinct, right? Like your sense, that innate sense. Like in some texts I've read, they talk about it like an animal instinct, like that. Like I just know, and you can't really put your finger on how you know that knowing, but you just have a knowing. Have you ever had a feeling like my doors isn't locked before I go to bed, and then you get up and you're like, lo and behold, it isn't locked. You're like, oh, thank goodness I checked that, because that's important. Not talking about a worrying instinct, like a worry thing, like, oh, I've got to check my door 5 times or anything like that. But Chinese medicine would put that instinct into the Po. It's the Po's job to have that instinct. And why is it important to know about this? Because sometimes those things are lacking and we're looking for how we can increase that in our life. Like we might want more of that. We might need to harness that. So there's some things we can do to strengthen that through like a 5-element model. We can use acupuncture points. We could use the aromatherapy stuff I'm going to talk about is quite powerful like that. So instinct, it's a sensory nature of our body. So it's directly linked to the 5 senses: your sense of hearing, your sense of sight, your sense of smell, your sense of taste. And again, that's super linked to the instinct aspect of those things. Like, have you ever had that experience where, I mean, smell is a big one, where it can really put you off or really turn you on. Either way, like if you talk to evolutionary biologists about that, they'll say, you know, there's a reason why smell is. Oh, cool. Tony's got a question. Yeah, I can definitely answer that. You've come to the right place, somewhat in a way. Where smell might really put you off something, because that's part of the protection of nature to say, stay away from that thing. It smells really bad. So your Po is kind of related to instinct. It's linked to the breath through your lungs, and that's a metal element connection. So one way of thinking about the Po is like, we breathe in. When we breathe in, we're taking something in that's needed for us. But then when we breathe out, we're letting go of what we don't need. And that's letting go is definitely a part of metal. That's a big part of the metal element. And that relates to the large intestine and the lung, right? So this kind of idea of taking in and letting go, you could attribute that to the physical stuff that you take in, like food and drink and stuff. But you could also attribute it to, like, you know, people that you have around you and what you allow to come into your life. Don't receive that. My mum used to say that to me all the time. Like, it was a bit of a probably more of a Christian thing that she'd be like saying, don't receive that. Like someone says something bad about you or something, she's like, don't receive that. You know, like people can say stuff and you don't have to receive it. That's an aspect of the Po. That's an instinct thing, right? Who do I trust? Who do I listen to in my life? So people that are really good at that would have a strong Po aspect. Now, if that is lacking for you, it used to be strong and you're looking for how to strengthen that, one of the reasons can be because you've gone through colds and flus. Like that definitely is, I touched the microphone, an attack on the lungs and that system that we have. The Po being related to the breath. So I'm just reading a couple of little notes that I made. This is a really good one. So I've got this book here that I love because it's just such a cool little book, especially for self-help aspects. Here we go. It's called Aromatherapy and Healing the Spirit by Gabrielle Mojay. Mojay. It's a bad title for the book, I think, because it's really all about Chinese medicine. So it goes through heaps of essential oils, and then it has little sections at the back that kind of talks about some of the mental health aspects of Chinese medicine in the book. So it's a great book for a beginner of Chinese medicine that's never used it before, and they've got essential oils, or they're interested in it and thinking about how would they relate to different aspects in that. And in this book, she talks about that the Po is directly affected by regret, remorse, and lingering loss. So that's not a concept that's just only for her book, but Jeremy Ross, another author that I've got, which is like literally an acupuncture textbook. I think it's called Acupuncture Point Combinations or something like that. It's not a book you'd buy for understanding Chinese medicine, although it has a really great section on the personality types for the 5 elements, its own little thing. He talks about this idea of grief relating to the metal, which we all know if you're a TCM aficionado, an enthusiast, a learner of Chinese medicine, you'd know that grief and loss relates to the metal element. So he talks about that, but then the corporeal soul, which is still part of metal, relates more to the remorse or the regret aspect of loss. So how does this play out, right? Like, it's normal to grieve. It's good to grieve. It's abnormal not to. So if you can't, or there's just something stuck about that, that's definitely something acupuncturists, especially 5-element acupuncturists, kind of deal with, like can help you with. Or you could try acupuncture points even. Like your lung channel is one of the easiest channels to find, and that's on your hand here on the inside. So if I just have the inside of my arm, all along this part, the fleshy part of the inside, this sensitive sort of area, that's all lung channel. Anyway, so this won't be too long-winded, and we'll get to Tony's question in a sec. The grief and loss aspect is normal, right? That is okay, so you could think of grief as the loss of a bond of attachment, right? So for instance, like you can get attached to a lot of things, and when they go, if the more attached you are to it, the more the grief and the loss happens. You've lost something, and that's normal, and it depending on what the person or the thing or the attachment aspect is. What's not so great, or what is an aspect of the Po, is when you go through that, but you can't move on from feeling remorse and resentment, like, oh, I wish I had have done this, and you can't resolve that, and that's kind of relating that relates to the Po, right? And there's a part of that goes, you go through that regret, but being stuck in regret in all your life, that might be something that could be worked on through strengthening the metal. Now, how do we strengthen metal? Well, the preceding element that gives birth to metal is earth. Earth gives birth to metal, which is all about your digestion. So if you strengthen your digestion, that definitely can help. Like, it's no doubt that can help with metal. You take the pressure off of the earth so the earth can flourish. Or we use points like stomach 36, which is on your leg, and maybe even spleen 9. Stomach and spleen are the 2 earth element points. So often we use the preceding element to actually strengthen the one that comes next. The Po is linked to breathing. What I'm going to do is jump back into this question in a minute with the essential oils for it, and some points for it. So we'll come back to it. Okay, we'll do Tony's question now. So he's asking about carnivore diet or keto diet. I can answer this one. I'm not sure have you been on other streams with me, and is this something that you're thinking about doing yourself? I'm just curious as what sort of prompted you to ask this question. I'm happy to answer this question. I feel a little bit like I'm banging the carnivore drum at the moment, because that is the diet that I'm doing at the moment. And I feel so good doing it, but I can definitely give you some pointers about what it does in a Chinese medicine sense. So Tony 1970 says, on somewhat of a different note, what is the view of TCM regarding a carnivore or a keto diet? So what we can do with diet therapy and Chinese medicine, like as in dietetics, that's the study of looking at foods and using foods as medicine and diet and stuff. The first thing we want to do is observe when a person does that diet, what is their body like? What changes? What's better? What's worse? Okay, that's a big part of it. And I did a video on this before because someone asked me a question ages ago, and that's actually what prompted me to try carnivore for myself. I'd already firstly heard of it from Jordan Peterson ages ago. Then a person asked me on the channel, what do you think about carnivore for blood deficiency and psoriasis? And then I sort of thought, okay, I really, really think about this. And then I tried it myself. I did the carnivore diet for like 100 days in 2023. And then I'll go into the details more if people want to hear more about that. But like I didn't really do proper carnivore then. I was definitely in a keto diet, but I was eating some nuts. And now I'm day 52 today of pure carnivore diet, and I feel really great. So one of the things that definitely happens is I think it strengthens the spleen and stomach, because most people's damp symptoms go away. And by that I mean the first thing most people say is the foggy headedness goes away if they had that to begin with, but then they get even more clarity. And that's not just carnivore, that's a keto diet. So it seems like our body is better functions on a keto diet. And there's plenty of research outside of Chinese medicine, like just Western medicine-based research, Western, just dietetic-based research that supports the healing processes happening in a ketogenic state, right? So what that probably means for many people is that it takes the pressure off the stomach, the spleen and stomach, the earth element, which then means everything else can kind of thrive and it can function properly. So I can get into even more detail about why I think this happens. But basically your digestion in Chinese medicine, the underlying the concept is everything takes up energy to digest. So don't eat more than you need, or don't eat things that are taking up more energy to get the gain of the product of the digestion. Like that is going to be a detriment to you. Like that's going to be wasting your time. And that's what we often do with our diet. Now, I also think, why is carnivore good in Chinese medicine? Because the foods Chinese medicine recommends people to eat from the Han Dynasty times up to Ming Dynasty, and times like that where we've got text, not text, but like we've got documents and we've got books and we've got use of these sort of foods that are not meat foods necessarily, they're plant foods and stuff like that. Those foods have changed now. Like the rice is not the same rice that they were having back then. The pesticides, the herbicides, the adulteration, the genetic modification, all of that sort of stuff, almost all of it just naturally goes away when you're on a carnivore diet. As in goes away because you're not even needing to eat any of that stuff. You're not going anywhere near those sort of foods. They've found that cows can eat glyphosated covered grass, and none of that gets into their meat. Right now, I'm not saying we should feed cows that's terrible, but they have two stomachs, they digest food differently, so it's super healthier for us. Now, does that mean that's the perfectest diet for everyone? Possibly not. Now, I'll tell you what I think it does in Chinese medicine. It's certainly a more warm diet. So meat has the most yang. Eggs, probably out of all the foods, have the second most yang. So if I have a patient who's a vegan, this wouldn't help them if they're a vegan. If they're a vegetarian, some vegans will change to be vegetarian or start including eggs. I would urge them to have eggs. Like, urge them, because eggs are like a second meat, and most carnivores would have eggs as well, which is what I have, right? So there's lots of yang, there's lots of warmness, there's life force in those foods. Now, there is some life force in plants, but not as much as meat. This is all from a Chinese medicine perspective. If aging and disease, taxation disease, like we talk about, culminative effects of living life, you basically are going to be born with this much yang, and then as you get older, you've got less and less yang. The yang's going to decline. It would make sense, the more yang you eat, the more yang infused foods that you eat, the better life force you'll have, right? So that's one benefit of it, man, I could just go on and on about this. So someone better ask a different other question. Otherwise I'll keep on going on about it. I think it's a highly effective diet for blood deficiency. And there's probably a lot of people going around with blood deficiency issues. Not every woman is blood deficient, but many, many are. And certainly women are taxed with blood more than men. Now, does that mean carnivore doesn't benefit men? No way. Like, there's lots of things it does, right? But that's a huge part of what carnivore or let's just say the carnivore diet. Now let's say you ask the question, what's the difference between a carnivore and a keto in Chinese medicine? How do they view it? I don't think it's healthy if you're doing a keto diet and you have a lot of artificial sweeteners, artificial flavors. Now, for some people, they just can't help themselves, right? I used to do the paleo diet. Now, I never did that as strictly as I'm doing this now. I just used to say I was doing it, and I sort of did it, right? But then, and that was around the time when Atkins diet was really popular, and people used to buy those Atkins bars, right? So it was like a Snickers bar, but with no whatever. It was just probably full of junk, right? But that stuff can still put on weight. And it's also more harmful for your body with all the chemicals like this, xylitol and all these other stevias and all these things. I don't think that's healthy for you either. Certainly in Chinese medicine, they think of flavors. So if it tastes sweet to you, it doesn't matter if it's stevia or if it's sugar, it's still going to do the same thing in Chinese medicine. And they found for many people, they eat something with artificial sweetener, it still raises their blood sugar, right? So, I definitely think it's a good diet to have. Now, what are the downsides of it from a Chinese medicine perspective? It's a very yang tonic diet, a very warming diet. So you must make sure that you have plenty of water or moistening things as well, not just dryness, right? Like, not that the meat is dry. Cool, there's a bit of a follow-up question there. Yeah, so you have to make sure you have plenty of water. Now, the way I'm doing it now is I'm doing a thing called 75 Hard. So it's a program. You do 2 workouts a day. You drink a gallon, which is like 3.75 litres, 3,800 litres, something like that. Almost 4 litres of water a day. Now, that is a lot in Chinese medicine. When I finish this program, I'm not going to keep drinking exactly that much water. But when I've done 75 Hard, not doing carnivore, just doing a fairly low carb diet, but just, I would still have pasta on it, and I still lost weight doing that, but I certainly didn't feel as good as I feel now doing this. I found that much water was a struggle to drink, right? Whereas doing carnivore, you might easily be able to drink more water. So just don't. Now, the other thing that don't try to limit your water, I guess is what I'm saying. The other thing I want to mention is be careful with carnivore and then adding alcohol in. Okay, I'll tell you my my little story. So I did carnivore for 100 days I did the 75 Hard in 2023 around September, October, November. And I finished around the 11th of November, something like that. And then I went to a 10 days thing in Byron Bay to study Chinese medicine. Hello, Radiant Fanatic. Great. Glad to have you join us. That's awesome. So I went to this study thing and I was planning not to stick on the no alcohol side of things by that point, right? Because I want to have a good time. And part of the 75 Hard for me is like, okay, just have 75 days, like literally you can't drink at all. So no alcohol, none. And it's good, like you reset your body. And many people who do carnivore just stop alcohol completely. Some people still have some alcohol or, that sort of stuff, right? So what had happened is I stayed on the carnivore, and that's how I stayed on it for another 100 days. I just naturally was feeling so good. I was, the food was supplied by the venue, but I just never ate any of their food. I would just cook my own steaks at home, just to disturb my little housemates with the meat smell every day. That didn't bother them, I don't think, too much anyway. So I did that, and then I just went back to the party time drinking, right? I like red wine. Now, red wine's very heating. in Chinese medicine. It's very warming. Now that can be good in a way, but a situation happened for me. I come back to Perth and I was still sticking on carnivore pretty strictly, but it was coming into Christmas. And, you know, these are the sort of times where you're like, oh, there's events, there's these sort of things. And I wasn't drinking as much as I was before I started the 75 hard, like before I did the carnivore. But I certainly wasn't like saying, oh, I've got to have, 5 days a week with no alcohol or anything like that. So one night I was out with some people and Elizabeth, ask any questions. They don't have to be about this topic. I just someone's asked it and it just sends me off on a tangent. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have, and there's no dumb questions. It's good that you're discovering Chinese medicine. Anyway, so I was out to dinner and I went sort of to blow my nose, and then I looked in tissue and there's like so much blood. I had to run I was like surprised. Like I've never had a blood nose in my entire life. Like, okay, I lie. Once I had a blood nose, but not like this. And I was like, oh my God, like my nose is like literally was, and there was no pain. There was no sense of anything. I was just sort of like, yeah, having a good time. And I went to the bathroom and it was just profuse. Like so much blood was coming out. And I was like, okay, this isn't good. Like, it stopped eventually and I'm still here. But I was like, okay, like I don't think it's a good combination to heat your body up with the carnivore and then on top add the alcohol, which is like in Chinese medicine, it's literally like lighting a fire there in a bad way. Alcohol heats your blood. So I probably just have to stay away from it, which is better for the best, right? So I'm just saying which tells you again, if you and this is anyone who's ever drunk a lot on a night, you sort of buffer the effects of the alcohol with carby foods, right? So you feel a bit less hungover. Whereas if you're not doing that, you're just eating meat, like your body's, I think it's so pure that it notices the toxic effects of it, right? Anyway, so that was my story. So I'm very aware of coming out of the carnivore. Not coming out of the 75 hard. I want to stay carnivore, but I want to also be able to drink every so often. I want to be able to, and I just need to make sure I don't overheat my blood with the combo again. So yeah, I mean, it's good to have these experiences when you're a practitioner because then you get to learn about things, I guess. But at the time it was quite scary. I was like, I'd never seen that much blood come out of a person's nose, let alone be it my own nose. Anyway, okay, so we've got some questions. Tony's got a follow-up one here. My understanding is that TCM is based on natural cycles and regularity. How does fasting fit into this? I've had some great results on carnivore combined with fasting, though only lasts for a couple of months. You've only been doing it the last few months? Yeah. So, okay. So you're right. Chinese medicine is based on cycles and regularity. So the key thing here is they say your stomach likes full and empty, not grazing all day long. Right. Now, one of my special interest areas is Chinese diet therapy. Like, I know a lot about all the different properties of foods. Now I'm carnivore. I don't use them anymore, but I know all about them. And I have this little book about longevity. Like it's all these longevitous people that have been interviewed in China. And one similarity in that book, some of these people were 107 and stuff like that, is they often only had one meal a day. And this is written way before this stuff was popular, intermittent fasting and all this sort of stuff, right? So the thing that your stomach doesn't like with fasting is it being ad hoc, like here and there, I'm not sure when a meal's coming. If you've got some regularity to that is a good thing in Chinese medicine, right? Now, what you'll find naturally for most people that start doing, especially if you went from a high carb diet to a very low carb diet, is you might naturally fall into a pattern where you don't need to eat as often. So I would not recommend people force themselves into that unless they've been doing it already for a while, which it sounds like you have. and then you're ready to make some changes. Maybe you need to level up your results or something like that. When your body's not eating, so this is another thing, Chinese medicine practitioners don't often say this, but like, how do you benefit your stomach, your actual stomach, right? What's the benefit to it? In herbal medicine, we actually like purge it or open it, empty it, right? Your stomach doesn't benefit from receiving food. It's like another job it has to do. So you actually benefit from not eating food. And that's the benefit that you get from fasting. And that's what then happens is your body goes into the repair state. Now, what's great about a ketogenic diet, particularly carnivore diet, high-fat carnivore diet, is you're not sort of starving in that fasting time. For most people, they're not sitting there like, oh, I'm so hungry, I can't wait, and when is my next meal coming? Like, I don't think that's a good state to be in, real anxious, waiting for food to happen. So I think it's probably good, right? So finding something regular, like that's the whole thing. Your stomach likes full and empty, not grazing all day long. We've never been a proponent of grazing all day long. So that's the key there. All right. So any other questions are welcome. I'll talk about this 75 hard question here on the 75 hard carnivore. So Liz, Radiant Fanatic says, I've been doing research on 75 hard and watching videos on its protocols. That's great. Hopefully you might decide that it's something for you. It's certainly a good, like Andy, the guy who created it, calls it a mental toughness program, right? So it's really designed to help you get into gear, get your mind into gear. So Elizabeth says, let me just put this question on there. Are you taking, on the 75 hard carnivore, are you currently taking any herbs, or are you keeping it strict carnivore? Look, I am taking herbs. I might try a time without herbs, but like I feel good on the herbs. So I kind of like want to use this time, because there's some herbs that interact with alcohol in Chinese medicine that like basically certain yang tonic herbs are good to, it's good, and it's summertime now. It's a good time to tonify the yang. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm sort of smashing that aspect of it. Sort of, allowing myself to take the advantage of that, right? Now, so I can kind of get the double whammy, the double benefit. And I think I might be quitting coffee soon. So what do I eat in the I'm basically carnivore, but most coffee is not a carnivore thing. Now, it's not going to take you out of ketosis, and that's probably part of the previous question that was asked from Tony. I've heard from other carnivore doctors and whatnot that if you stop coffee, aches and pains will go away. Now, I had no aches and pains to begin with, but I've got aches and pains now from the exercise that I'm doing on 75 hard, and it's not that bad. It's not stopping me from exercising, but I wonder whether that would just go away if I stopped the coffee. But I just love the coffee, and look, it's working for me. So I'll see if I come to it. I'm day 52 today, so I've got another 25 or so days on the 75 hard program. It's probably a good amount of time to actually give yourself to test out something like carnivore, to be able to do things gradually. Like most people say, like they have these carnivore challenges and stuff like that, maybe 30 days, and then a lot of people just stay on it because that's enough time to notice, hey, I feel better eating like this. So that's the downside. Radiant Fanatic says coffee and tea is delicious, but coffee has a lot of toxins. And that's the issue, right? Like with people who do carnivore, like what my purpose for carnivore was more easiness. Like, just being honest, like I want to lose weight and it's easy. As in, it's not easy to think, oh, I got to give up this and that, but you don't have to think every day, what will I make? What will I do? How many you don't have to count any calories or worry about exact carbs. So to answer that question between the keto and the carnivore, basically on carnivore, you can eat as much food as you want. As long as it's carnivore food, it won't mess up your weight loss or anything or your results. Whereas with keto, you might be able to have stuff with, you want to keep the carbs, between 20 to 50 grams of carbs, depending on what your goals are. And so you got to count all that stuff. And it's like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'd rather just not have these weird, like, I don't know, carnivore cheesecakes and stuff that people make and that kind of thing. Yeah, let's just get rid of this question. And we'll see if we grab another one. So yeah, to answer, we'll come to you said Radiant Fanatic said timing of foods is important. Yes. So I would just pick a timing schedule that works for you. Your stomach likes full and empty, not grazing all day long. And it's okay to change that schedule, but then roughly stick to that schedule. Rather than, sometimes I have this and sometimes I don't. What I have found on carnivore sometimes is every so often I wake up and I'm like really hungry in the morning, but I'm usually not. And if that happens, I will eat. I'll eat some eggs. But usually I don't feel hungry until about 2:00 in the afternoon. Now when I first started, that wasn't what happened. I was waking up feeling hungry and angry and annoyed. That's kind of gone away now. All right, so we've got another question here. What are some ways to enhance blood flow? Herbs or iron-rich foods? Okay. Let's think about this. So, my pleasure. I'm happy to answer your question, Elizabeth. Yeah, okay. So maybe we quickly jump to this coffee one really quickly. For the Tony one, because that'll be quickly. He says, thanks a bunch on coffee. What effect does it have on the organs, particularly on the liver, as I have a lot of damp heat and more than I'd like? Yeah. So coffee has two natures. Okay. The first nature is it's warm and it's aromatic, which means it moves. It opens the sort of the pathways of the liver in a way. Like, let's say the function of liver qi is to move and spread, and that's usually the first coffee of the day will give you that effect where you feel good and you're just like, yeah, I feel good, but you don't have a detriment effect often. Now some people do, because it's stimulating the wood element, and then the next element on is the fire. Now fire is where people feel nervousness, jitteriness, too much of that. So for some people, if they stimulate wood, they don't just get the expansive nature of wood, they then feel all jittery and can't. They might say, oh, if I even have a coffee at 10:00 in the morning, I can't sleep at night. I've had some people tell me that. So they must be very, very, very affected by the caffeine effect, and that's kind of what's doing that. So the other aspect of coffee, because it's a bean, beans are not great in Chinese medicine, right? They're a purgative food. What that means, it's going to open your digestive system and flush everything out. So if you're trying to build your system up with substances, with herbs, with whatever, supplements, foods even, what coffee does is it purges you. It makes your bowels go more than they should go. Now this could be beneficial for someone who's got constipation. It would make them go. In this effect, the negative effect has the purgative effect, has a variance of how much you've had and also how weak a person is. So the more weaker their spleen and stomach is, the more looser their bowels are going to be from the coffee, from the beans effect of the coffee. There was a product out a while ago. I'm not like this anymore, but I used to be a bit like, oh, the superfood that's going to make me lose weight or something like that, right? And the green coffee, I don't know if you ever saw this green coffee that used to go around. You get like shakes of it and stuff. And it was very expensive. It was like a sachet that you were supposed to eat. It was like, 10 times better than normal coffee. It's going to boost your metabolism and all this stuff. I thought, right, I'll just buy the green coffee beans, grind them down myself and eat the powder because that'd be cheaper. So I did. And man, that really gave my guts a big cramping. Like, that wasn't good. I just had to throw those beans out eventually because I was like, there's nothing these can be used for, and I don't have any way to roast them myself. So we lessen the effect of that purgative thing by the roasting of the coffee bean, and that makes the flavor that we like come out, but it still has that. And also the other thing, not just it's a bean, but in Chinese medicine, things that are bitter have a purging effect, right? It moves the bowel. So it kind of acts on peristalsis. It's going to squeeze. And for some people, then they get the runs or diarrhea, and that's not good for you, or frequent bowels, that kind of stuff. So I think obviously this is it's going to be related to a tolerance. The more you have, you probably build up a tolerance. It doesn't affect you as much. It doesn't mean it's good for you, but yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, like all foods are a bit like this, that they will have different effects. They have the effects they do, but how that plays out for different people is going to be maybe more severe or less severe, depends on your constitution and possibly what else you do to mitigate it, right? So, yeah. Now, people in the carnivore area that will just basically say, well, coffee's a plant and plants are poison, so don't have them. Like, you shouldn't be having it. So if you're trying to do the carnivore diet for healing and help and like fix something in your body, treat something, if that's your aim, then you wouldn't be having coffee. You wouldn't be having tea. You'd be trying to avoid all of that just so that you can see what the effects of not having any plants or any things that aren't meat firstly have on you, and then maybe if you reintroduce it, you see if there's any issues. Right, now we're going to do the blood flow question. Right, cool. Spice Bear, hello, how you going? Good evening and morning to you. I did start with your question about, I think it was your question about the Po, but I didn't finish it, so I'll come back to that if you didn't hear that, or we come back to it. If you have something else you want to ask, that's fine too. All right, so TCM question, what are some ways to enhance blood flow and circulation in the body using food? What would you suggest? Would you suggest more heating herbs or rich in iron foods? Yeah. Okay, so the first flavor you want is pungent. Pungent is in direct cahoots with the liver energy, right? Which is basically the movement of qi. So your liver, the wood element, its movement is in all four directions. It's like spreading. And that's what pungent foods do. So they move qi in order to move blood, right? So if you want to increase blood flow, blood circulation, you could go for a walk, right? You could go for a run. You could do some exercise. Now that's actually not moving blood. It is moving blood. But before blood gets moving, qi gets moving, right? Which is literally, if you want to get nitty gritty about it, like, your heart pumps. The heart pumping is qi, which then forces blood to move, right? So what are these pungent foods? I'll go a bit slowly because I normally do these too fast. So cinnamon and ginger are probably the first two that come to mind that are the best ones, right? But then all of your culinary herbs that aren't necessarily Chinese medicine ones can do this too. So spring onion, ginger, basil, mint. Mint's a cooling one, but it's still pungent. Garlic. Yep, you dump the questions here, that's fine, and then you get ready for work. Don't lose. I know it's early in the morning for you, the Spice Bears. So mint, basil, garlic, Even turmeric. Turmeric's a Chinese herb as well. So these things all move qi. They're pungent in their nature. Now, how can you tell something's pungent? Well, you smell it. Whoa, it really is got a strong smell. Okay, that's partly a pungent thing. That's going to be how you'd know. So even like oregano and these kinds of things will somewhat help. Sometimes blood gets stuck or stagnant. It's not flowing properly, as in Chinese medicine, our theory, right? Because it's deficient. So that would be like eating more meat, eating more hotter meats, lamb, cooking meats even with ginger to increase the warmness of those foods, which then in turn like makes them more like I've heard this is not so strictly Chinese medicine, but like you can make meats, certain parts of meats, more bioavailable by cooking it for longer, like a slow cooked. So, you know, it's good to have some things slow cooked, some things not. But bone broth and stuff like that, which you get for the collagen aspects of meat, would be a good thing to tonify blood. Now, what are the foods that would do that? Anything that's purple, that's black coloured naturally. So beetroot, all your berries, okay, red things and dark purple things like blueberry, blackberry, raspberry, all those things will tonify blood. And then what else can move blood? Let's think about this. I feel like there's something I've missed that's so obvious. I mean, if you've got symptoms in a certain area, like you've got tingling or numbness in your limbs or pain somewhere that because it's not, or you just, you know, your legs go to sleep or something like that, massaging the channels, like just this is a basic one where you do like an open fist like this. I mean, I just had a pipe, an empty pipe, just sort of not a metal pipe, like a circular tube, a cardboard tube that's empty, you know, and you use that on your back. And that's a very popular type of massage in Russia, right? Self-beating, self-hitting kind of massage. And it's also a part of Chinese medicine. Like I've got these little books that sort of show you how to do all these things and these hitting exercises. So you're just increasing circulation with that. Yep. Cool. I'm glad you guys feel welcome. That's great. And thanks everyone for making people feel welcome. That's so lovely. Yeah. So, and foods that are rich in iron. I think just look that stuff up. I mean, it's. I know that there's some foods that are rich in iron, but in Chinese medicine they might not be so great. Like, for instance, beans. Part of the iron issue is the absorption of the iron. So if your small intestine is cold, you've got yang deficiency. Now, one of the best ways to know that is actually below your... There's my navel there. So this area here. Oh, the question's in the way. I'll just get rid of that question. So here, right? In this area here, if that area feels cold, if that feels like freezing cold, so what you want to do is lie down and just pull your top up and just feel your stomach, or like your tummy from under your ribs and all that sort of area down, and then you sort of feel which areas feel cool and which areas feel warm. So it's in relation to each other, and that's a good sign of yang deficiency if it's sort of like a circle or an area of coolness just below the belly button. And then the best food/herb for that is the dried ginger. There's other herbs that can be used, but I can't say them on this channel because they're like prescription grade herbs. Like you need to see a practitioner, because if you don't need them, they'll make people so much worse. Or like they often need I don't even know how you get it without seeing a herbalist. But there are herbs that can kind of do that. So we're essentially trying to warm that yang in the lower jaw, lower area. And that repairs the small intestine. It's working on increasing the function. This is really, 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 really interesting on this topic, because I know you've asked this question. So I was just watching an interview with a doctor, on a carnivore doctor. I don't know if he's a carnivore doctor himself. I'm going to have to find his name. But it was one of the most recent interviews on, let me see if I can find it, Dr. Anthony Chaffee's channel. And he was talking about when people eat a carbohydrate meal, they've looked inside their blood vessels, and that literally, like, all these changes happen in the blood vessels that are negative changes, and that takes like 12 hours to go away after just that one carb meal. So it's like literally damaging the blood vessels from just one carbohydrate meal. Now, this is, if people are having this all the time, then they're damaging this internal lining, these little sort of villi kind of things that are inside the blood vessel. It was really, really interesting. Let me see. I suffer with watching everything, not remembering what I've watched. Where was that thing that I watched? But it was definitely him interviewing, and it was definitely a new one. And it was a guy, an older man doctor. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Don, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was that episode. And it's called Medical Lies, Exposing Criminality and Corruption Within the Medical Profession with Dr. Don on Anthony Chaffee, MD's channel. So anyway, I'm sure it was that episode. And he was just talking about this interaction between carbohydrates and how it damages the blood. Now, Chinese medicine just sort of attributes carbohydrates to causing dampness. Like, they don't say it damages the blood. But like, if you have dampness, so this is, now I'm putting my brain on supercharge here. If you have dampness, it's like a blockage of free flow of energy in that earth element, which basically means your absorption is going to be impaired. And the minute you have dampness, you're going to have that foggy, cloudy-headedness, or feel tired after eating, sick after eating, bloated, which often a lot of those symptoms just go away on a purely carnivore diet. So there's something about the carbohydrates that's not great for you. You know, from a Chinese medicine perspective, it's causing some level of damp. And I think what happens is most people just get used to it, right? They just get used to that feeling like that, and they don't realize that they could feel better, or that they should feel somewhat better, or something like that, right? All right, Tony, have a great rest of the day. And thanks for your questions. Yeah, check out that guy's interview if you're into carnivore. It sounds like you are into carnivore. Yeah, so we get back into this question about, so that's where you were asking about blood. Yeah, and it just made me think about the damage, you know, how some carbohydrates can kind of, you know, if they're damaging the blood vessels, like, that's impeding our ability to have good quality blood, because that's where the blood is, right? Yeah, so that's basically the foods that are kind of rich in iron that I've kind of mentioned already now. Yeah. So foods that are dark coloured, which there aren't really a lot of them, but they are the vegetarian versions of blood tonic foods. Okay, so in terms of foods, okay, I hope I haven't missed any questions here. There's quite a few chats. Spice Bear says, my vegetarian friend is pregnant and she's wondering how to have a strong placenta as a vegetarian. Okay. I'll give you a couple of little extra things. I think I feel like this is, we've talked about this already, but I'll just do it again. Okay, so this may not be suitable for everyone. There's a thing called royal jelly, which is like a blood tonic supplement, foodie type of thing. You can mostly get it from Chinese food shops. Make sure you notice of the doses. Don't have too much of it. Someone took too much of it in Australia once, and now we have these warnings on it saying it could cause anaphylaxis or something like that, because one time a lady fed too much to her kid and they got asthma from it or something. So that's called royal jelly. And I used to eat that as a vegetarian. I used to be a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for 9 years. I've also talked about how to make a soup with herbs and foods together. So you can use a herb called dungwei. Now that is a good herb to cook with. I'll put it in the chat there. It's called Angelica. Is it called Angelica? I think it is. That's irrelevant. Its English name. Or Dongquai. Yeah, Angelica sinensis. I'll just put that there. When I learned Chinese herbs, we didn't learn their English names. And it's only later in life that I've kind of come to memorize these. Now, you can cook dungwei. Just looking, I don't have any on the shelf there, but it's sort of it's got a very woody taste. I mean, looks like a piece of wood. Husky taste. I don't know if that helps you, but you can basically put it into a soup. You can take a few pieces of it and cook with it. It's not going to overshadow the flavor of the food too much, but that basically will help your vegetables. Like you would want to make it like a stock, and then either eat that stock or put that stock into other things, because you won't get that much benefit if you just you couldn't use it as a stir fry. You certainly aren't going to eat that herb, right? It's a woody, sticky herb. You have to take it out at the end. So you just kind of boil it up. You could just use it by itself as a drink, but I think it's probably not going to taste that great. And in Chinese medicine, herbal formulas are formulas for a reason. There's not just ever really one herb. There's only 2 or 3 formulas in the whole world that are one herb things. We are very much formula-based medicine practitioners, which means, one herb tonifies and the other one does something else that sort of buffers the effect of the other one. And it's sort of a perfect representation of that homeostasis within that formula that's supposed to be happening. So, the royal jelly is a good one for the pregnancy. Sorry, not for pregnancy. I mean for blood deficiency. Check if you're okay to have that in pregnancy. Like, there's going to be some kind of label, health warnings and stuff like that on the labels. I think in most countries it's just available as a food. It's basically the honey that the bees make for the queen bee. That's kind of what it is. You can get it in capsules and stuff like that as well. There are some things like if I say dungwei and you have dungwei in pregnancy, there's probably some kind of study saying, it causes miscarriages. If you have, this would be, they give it to rats and give them heaps of it and see if they miscarriage. Like with herbs in pregnancy, you want to make sure you go through a herbalist, because if you don't need it, there's no point in taking it, is what I'm saying. But these are blood tonic foods that we would think about, and I'm not saying it would be right to have it in pregnancy or not. You'd need to check. From a Chinese medicine perspective, I wouldn't just give that out as a blanket thing. I would make sure they actually do need that. Definitely staying away from cold, dry and raw foods, eating plenty of cooked foods. That's going to lessen the detrimental effects of the colder side of the vegetarian diet versus the warmer side of the meat diet. Eggs would be the other thing. Just have heaps of eggs, plenty of eggs, like 2 or 3 eggs a day if you can. Put eggs in stuff so that it's kind of buffing it out with the eggs. That's very helpful. Yep. It's better to be a vegetarian than a vegan. I mean, when you're pregnant, your body's just basically giving up all its nutrients to the baby, leaving the mother in the if there's anyone going to take a hit, it's the mother, not the baby, for that deficit. So what will happen is often everything will be fine until the baby's born, and then the mum will be depleted. So they can be really tired. They could have, a lot of postpartum issues. They could just be really, there could just be all kinds of stuff happen that they wouldn't have thought. They thought, I was fine in the pregnancy, because your body was like sort of keeping everything going as best as it could, and then it's like, oh, thank goodness that's over. Okay, now we'll really show you what we've been taxed on. All right, so we've got a few questions here. Elizabeth says, do you think carnivore conflicts in any way with TCM practices when it comes to food? No, not really. I think it's like Chinese medicine never says you have to eat all these foods. They just basically list out what the foods do, as in what are all the natures of foods. I still do think there's a place for plants to be used in healing, and otherwise, like many strict carnivores wouldn't take herbs, or they wouldn't do anything like that. So if you were to get sick, I still would believe in treating that sickness, like that cold and flu, with herbs, with foods or herbs. I think you're definitely going to see what those things do on a more pure kind of diet. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of there's a lot of use of different kinds of meats in China that we just don't use in Australia for all kinds of things. Okay, I've got this diet therapy book that's like published by Livingston International. It's kind of like a really set text for diet therapy. It's like the core diet recipes, and so many of them are just weird animal recipes, like pork, pig's lung, soup, and all kinds of parts of animals that we are used for treating different things. There's the Chinese use a lot of pork for treating things, and parts of animals that we just would, in the Western world, we just would not go near eating them, right? So not just talking about offal like pig's lung. I mean, I've not eaten that myself. I think some people in Chinese medicine might just not be aware of what carnivore does, and they kind of freak out and say, oh, well, that just seems like, whoa, that seems really restrictive. Like, where's your nutrients coming from? Like, I think that's a bit ignorant for them to think. Same doctors think like this. Some doctors are like, they just see, oh, you're not eating your vegetables, and they haven't really thought that through. They just think they're just saying what they've been spoon fed, right? Like the reason why I'm good at doing this kind of stuff is because I do spend a lot of time, and I have in the past spent a lot of time thinking, well, how does Chinese medicine understand that concept? Like really just how do we think about that, right? Apply the principles of it. And before, I'm not sure if you were in the stream before when Tony asked his question at the very start, I did say some downsides, I think, in Chinese medicine, which one of them is that it's a very warming kind of diet, and for some people that might be too warming in some ways, in some aspects, especially if they start adding alcohol to that warming scenario. Okay, we've got this question about, I've gotten lost. I've scrolled up and I've gotten lost in the questions. Let me have a look. Okay, then Elizabeth says, in terms of food, I mean like eating healing fruits or using ginger to heal, because carnivore, exactly. It restricts everything. If you're strictly a carnivore, you don't eat anything, right? Except for meat and animal products. So I think if you have that as your base diet, and then you have something that you make because of a specific reason, like for instance, pears are a very well-known food to moisten the throat. and they will moisten that dryness. Now, you might find if you do carnivore for 6 weeks that your original throat dryness has gone away and you don't have that anymore, so you don't now need the pears. But if you did have that dryness and you go, okay, the pork slung, that's actually the other treatment for dryness, which is why I prefer the pears, because I've never ever felt a throat dryness and then gone, oh, let me make some pig lung for that. So maybe I'll try it now that I'm doing this. I think you would know what that thing is doing. You'd know what that pear is doing with in cahoots with the herbs that you've put with it or whatever it is like. So I think that can be really beneficial to know what the one thing that you're doing is doing. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So Radiant Fanatic says, I feel like when I eat more iron and rich foods, I feel more focused. Yeah. Or when I'm moving around. Yeah, because you're moving your chi, you're keeping things moving, and your body likes that. Like, I don't think we're not meant, I mean, sitting on a seat now, but we're not meant to be sitting all day, every day. And the majority of people are, right? Like you might get up and walk around your desk a little bit, but like, I don't think human beings are designed to sit in offices and sit in cars and, all the time. Like, really not that great for us. And what then you have to do is, maybe some people like, I've only got an hour for my exercise every day, so I'm going to pump it really hard at the gym and then hurt myself with that exercise and then do it all over again tomorrow. So I sit around all day for not being lazy, you're just working at your desk, and then you've got to, smash it at the gym. Like, I don't have the answer to that, but it seems not the greatest. Okay. Do you think Gota Kula is a good herb to get the blood flowing? I'm not even sure what that is. I'll have to look it up. Lost it here. Kula. Indian pennywort. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what it does in Chinese medicine. It's going to depend on its flavor, like if it's really bitter or sweet or whatever it is. I can see it's like a green shrubby sort of a thing. Yeah, I'd have to look into it. I'll just be, I don't know, making things up at this stage. So we won't be doing that. Cool. Yeah, so Elizabeth says 2 things. Aches and pains in the legs. I have aches in my legs and I wonder if cutting out plants would help, such as arugula, ginger, garlic, tomato, etc. In Chinese cooking, they use a lot of chili and chili flakes and sauces. And on carnivore, this would not be allowed due to plant toxins in, cayenne. Well, just anything. So what you'll find if you go onto a carnivore diet, now, I don't think this would be an unhealthy in any way as an experiment that everyone could do. Right? It's just inconvenient to do it for many people. And you look, before I did this, I love pasta. Like, who doesn't love a big bowl of pasta? Like, it's delicious. But the effects on your body aren't as good, and it's, not long term and blah, 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 right? So what you would want to do is go, okay, I'm going to do this for a certain amount of time, like at the least at 7 days, maybe longer, as a trial. And hopefully by the end of that 7 days, you might be feeling really, really good. So you want to keep staying on it, right? But you will not be able to test out the full effects of it if you're having sauces and things like that on it. Now, some people find that they're still in ketosis if they put chili flakes on their steak or those kinds of things, and they're fine, right? They were fine. So if you're okay, great, and you're happy like that, that may work for you. So it's kind of what it would be called an animal-based diet, right? Or like a mostly carnivore sort of a diet. yeah, so this one, Elizabeth said, I'm super interested. The Animal Based by Paul Saladino, right? So he started out saying carnivore was the best thing, and now he's changed his tune a little bit, to say that, well, I've changed my mind. We're all allowed to change our minds. I think the best strategy to follow is, if you're really unwell and you want to see what the anti-inflammatory effects are going to be, then you need to go as strict as you can eventually. Might not be straight away. What I mean by that is the lion diet would be the most strict. So that's just beef, salt, and water. If you, it's funny that his name's Saladino as well, because it's like salad. You feel like if you're a carnivore, you change your name from Saladino, like just Metadino. change your name there. It's not really great branding. Maybe that's why he naturally moved into eating salads again or something. I don't really follow him. I just I've seen a few of his videos. I don't have time to follow many more people because I already follow a lot of things on YouTube. Yeah, no salads. Paul, no Saladino. I just find that funny. It's like, it's ironic, right? It's ironic. So what was I saying? If you're really unwell, the only thing that's going to hurt you doing lion diet, which is the strictest version of carnivore that there is just ruminant meat, which is basically beef, salt and water. So no sauces, not even any milk, no cheese, nothing like that. Then you would truly be able to know what happens when you add those other things in. Now, you might start off with whatever you're eating and then transition slowly towards that. Or you might just decide one day, right, I'm just going to test this and just decide I'm going to try the lion diet from today onwards, right? Spice Bear says, I know people are all about going cold turkey off things, but I personally rather wean off it. Yeah. Well, that's that way you will have probably the least major thing. But for some people, it's like a drug. It's like heroin. Like, you don't wean off of heroin. You decide one day, I'm not having it anymore. And I'm not going to, that you have to decide what that, for yourself, what is that doing for me? Like, is this my crack? This delicious candy that I can't stop having. For some people, they are really, 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 it's like that addiction of it. If they even have a tiny bit, like a little bit of a whiff of sugar, and they're eating a whole box of donuts, right? Or something like that. So exactly that. You might need to do that. So I'm not judging anyone. Everyone do what they want to do. You probably eat the bowl of pasta while you watch this, which is fine. When you first start, it's really hard. Like, I couldn't go out to sit at a meal with other people for the first week, which I purposely did it at a time where I wasn't going to do that, because I would have felt like, oh, I'm missing out on something. But then once you're in it and you're happy doing what you're doing, you won't be tempted that much by other things. But these things have a chemical addiction in your brain. Like, you eat a chip and then you're like, man, where's another chip? Like, then you're thinking about chips. Like, I don't think about chips anymore because I haven't had them for ages. Now, if I had one, I know I'd be thinking about it again, or I'd be think, oh, that might be nice. Like, when you go through the shopping center or the supermarket, you're like, oh, where's that chips aisle? Or whatever your thing is. So for some people it just works like that. Now, when you start this kind of a thing, if we're really thinking about it from a Chinese medicine perspective, it's probably less harsh on your body to transition towards it in a natural way. So what I would do is stop the sugar. Don't have sugar. Like, there's no purpose in sugar for you, okay? Even if you think there is, stop that. And then, like, reduce the carbs over a week. Or if you're not having carbs, don't start having them. And then just reduce the veggies. That's how I first came onto carnivore myself, is I was trying to be low carb and I just naturally was not making any other. And I was like, I just can eat a steak and I don't need to put anything else on. Is that okay? Like, And if you're used to having meat with sauces, what will happen is this was the thing I was thinking of before, but I got lost on my track of the train of thought. You wouldn't need the cayenne pepper and the sauces and things like that are often used, because you really taste the flavor of the original food, which is even if you're vegetarian, like you'll taste the flavor of the food itself without all these other added things. Yeah. So, you want to have some kind of goal in mind, or some kind of day where you're like, okay, by this day I'm going to be started, or I'm going to be on it. Because what will happen is, if you just say, oh, I'm gradually transitioning towards it, it might take you a few months to get there, and then you've never really got there. So if you know yourself, you know what's going to work for you, you know what's going to help you and what's going to hinder you. Yeah. And then you'll kind of know, right? I think the thing with the like making it animal based with a bit of this and a bit of that, if you feel unwell, you go back to the main diet that you feel good on, and then you can always go back and try something else. Yeah. All right, is salt necessary in foods, or is it just a rock that we think we should be eating? I read it causes necrosis in the body. I think we do need salt. It is not just a rock. I don't even know if I need to put this question on the screen. I've started the process. Yeah. So I'll tell you what salt does in Chinese medicine, and I'll tell you why I think it is useful if you're going to do something like an animal-based diet particularly. What its function is in Chinese medicine is flushing out. It's purgative. Okay, so you don't want too much of this. You don't want a lot of this. But salt will actually aid your bowels to move. So I think if you didn't have salt, you may have problems with electrolyte balance, like for people that I don't quote me on this exactly, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to be an issue if you don't have salt, if you just have water and beef and no salt. How much salt you need, I don't think you need to pile on the salt. You certainly don't need to have teaspoons of salt. Most people just salt their meat. Salt is also a preservative, or it stops the meat from going bad. So often salt was used when people didn't have fridges to keep meat from going bad. And that can, obviously infuse flavor into your food, but it can also stop it from going bad. So it's had a long history of kind of use in that kind of stuff. But yeah, so the things that stop you from getting constipated on a animal-based or carnivore kind of diet would be having an appropriate amount of fat. Like you need a high-fat diet. So you don't want to stay away. You want to eat plenty of fatty meats, but also the salt. Like I think that is going to help ensure that the bowels are moving, right? So I think that's good. You don't need tons of salt, but yeah, no, it's not just a rock that we don't use, but certainly we don't need excessive salt. And the association between salt and raising your blood pressure is actually like been disproven. So yeah. Yeah, so someone says the Celtic salt brand. I saw that video actually. Someone, was it Paul Saladino? Had that on YouTube with the Celtic salt, saying he's not having it anymore or something like that, testing it. Well, this is an issue, right? Where do you get your foods from, and what have they got in them? So yeah, I'm always really dubious about anything that comes from China, from mainland China, even though all these herbs do. My supplier tests all our herbs for heavy metals, pesticides and stuff like that outside of China. So I'm pretty happy with the herbs, but like I've seen so many food products issues, adulterations, with that. So I can't say everything from there is bad. And certainly when I go into China, I just eat the food that's given to me. Like, who knows what you're eating there? Honestly, you wouldn't know. It's probably just better not to know. But it's like, so I'm not saying that salt comes from there, but just, yeah, if it's yeah, if you're going to go onto a pretty strict diet where you're only going to eat 3 foods, beef, salt and water, you better make sure those 3 things are good quality, because especially if you're eating the same thing all the time, like the same supplier for your meat, the same supplier for your salt, because you're going to have an issue there. Whereas if you have a lot of foods and you have a little bit of something that's contaminated from here, it's not, you're never going to have that again. It's just a one-off thing. It's probably not going to be such a big deal. Okay. So I think when you hone in on a specific thing, yeah. I mean, this is partly the issue that's been raised, in the US at the moment, with looking into regulations of what's allowed. I mean, I'm pretty happy that Australia has some regulation, but there's also, we could be better with things as well, right? And a lot of people don't realise, I'm not sure if it's like this in the US or the UK, but in Australia, like, we have a thing called certified organic. So that means it's certified. It's a government body that, or not a body, but it's some kind of certification, right? Now, that doesn't, because a product's a certified organic, it does not mean that it's been tested to prove it doesn't have anything in there. It's basically a declaration by the company or the place where it grows or where it's farmed or where it's made that the ingredients have not been tampered with. So they declare that, and they could be audited, which means people could go to that farm and check it, but they don't often. When was the last time that happened? I don't think that happens that often. So there's a big area where like there could be things missed. It doesn't mean that it's better than just any random food, especially like, okay, if they're saying it's certified organic, then it's not been directly sprayed with pesticides, but they haven't tested that product to see, like, has it sucked up something from the ground that was already there in the soil, and then now it's part of the plant, part of the food. Another really interesting thing is our supplier, Empirical Health, who supplies our herbs, Simon, he told me that Certified Organic Australia, ACO, they test for 126, or they have, basically it's 126 pesticides, herbicides, that kind of thing that they don't allow, whereas these guys, independent testing is more than 400. So there's way more things that could be used that are not part of ACO, Australian Certified Organic, and they could be using those things. It's just like, what? It's such a rot. Yeah. So yeah, it's helpful if people do have these tests. Like, I've seen people on YouTube, not maybe Instagram or something, or TikTok, going around testing for lead everywhere. There's this one guy that's like the lead testing guy. He has this kind of machine that tests for lead. And these kinds of stuff. Like, salt's a natural substance. There might be a place you could go and get salt from a natural salt lake near you that doesn't have contamination in it. Like, that's possibly a good idea. All right. Any other questions? Have we missed anything here? It has been a good stream tonight. Wow, Radiant Fanatic says, yeah, lots of regulation happening in the US now. They banned red food dye, but it will take 2 years to get off the shelves. Yeah, so that doesn't help the poor mums and dads and the people that are just going into the shop unbeknownst and thinking they're getting, something. And yeah. Yep. All right. Yeah. I'm just going to go back and see if I missed anything there. if anyone else has a question, now's the time to ask it. We'll probably finish soon. Yeah, no, yeah, I know Canada. You said has it. Yeah, that's good. They have less. They've got They don't allow as many nasties. What was your favourite topic when you first got into this field? Oh yeah, that's a good question. What's my favourite topic? I don't know. I just used to go around telling everyone how they could be healthier if they did these different things in Chinese medicine. Like I think I used to really like foodie herbs. I used to. Oh, that's another food that just popped in my mind for someone was mentioning the blood deficiency. Goji berries, right? Like I used to love those goji berries. And then they started getting popular, right? Goji, G-O-U. Goji's I'm just writing it in there. Now, the goji berries are much more of a food than a herb. They are a herb, but they're just like a weak herb. they're more of a delicious food. And I used to make them I used to make Rocky Road, which is not healthy at all. Okay, so Rocky Road's like in Australia. I don't know if you have Rocky Road where you live, but it's like marshmallows and chocolate and nuts and stuff. And then I'd put goji berries in it and tell everyone like I was making. I'd bring it to meetings and stuff that I was doing and things like that. And people would be like, "Oh, you're giving us this weird Chinese medicine again." It's like, "Oh, it's good for you." Yeah. So I used to be, I don't know, I've always just been fascinated with that it's so different. And I've always wanted to kind of help people. I think I was interested quite a little bit in like serious diseases when I was younger. I was thinking about doing some research in Parkinson's. I wasn't really that interested in it. Like it just kind of that faded away. When I first got into it, I'll tell you what I was really interested in was Tuina, Chinese massage. Like I really, really, really liked that. And I think what I liked about it was I did a little bit of it in school, right? So you do literally it was 6 weeks. I did 6 weeks of that, of Tuina, Chinese massage, and 6 weeks of shiatsu. And then I was told when you go to China, like, oh, you can learn the Tuina more. And when I went to the hospital and started doing it there, the atmosphere was so fun. That's probably why I was really into it and I just was like, well, I'm going to go back to Australia. I was really sad to leave China the first time. Like I just wanted to live there. I loved it so much. And yeah, I could have easily, like, if someone had said, oh, your passport's lost and you can never come home, I would have just been like, no worries, I'll stay here. I would have felt like I could have easily been one of those 7 years in Tibet people that just stayed there, right? Like, there's no way you could do that now. The government will find you in 5 minutes, probably. Even without your passport, they'll probably see your face somehow. But yeah, I really was into Chinese massage, and there's so many cool, weird things that they do with the massage that they don't do here, like in the hospital. So I worked in this clinic for the prolapsed disc patients with one of the doctors that was like he was the head of the department of Tuina. So he was really, really good, and I think he liked me because I was really keen on it, and I was really, really committed. Like I was, I would stay like stay extra and come early and all that sort of stuff. And he took me to the surgery one time, and I don't know if I have these photos. I'll see if I have it here because I cannot describe this to you. Let me see because I'm on my computer now. I found. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's an old photo. I could put that on there. Let's see if we got that. Yeah, I was so into this that I I did this massage called Tai Tiao, right? And I'll show you a picture of this. And it's like basically where you stand on the patient. And then I came home and I found this guy who made massage tables, and he made a bed for me. I still have the bed now. I've taken the frame off it because I don't do this anymore. Just going to look for this photo to put here. Where is it? So funny. It's so weird when I can see it on one file, but then it's not finding it. Yeah, so I used to really love the Twainer, the Chinese massage. Oh, that's because I've called it China Oto instead of photo. Let's see if we can get it now. Here we go. All right. I'm going to make it small so it can fit in here. All right, that is me in that's me in China in 2001 in the Hangzhou hospital. That's how young I was. And we had to wear these white coats because they had given us these white coats. So Tai Tiao is literally like a type of massage where you stand on people, and you use your feet, and where my feet are I was hardly holding my weight up there because this guy was big, but like my feet and my whole weight would have been on his around the L4, L5. So below that area you can put quite a lot of pressure on, and that can withstand your body weight. So you use the bars to sort of hold it so that you don't, so then you sort of tiptoe along use your feet along in between the spinous processes and stuff like that. You can use your feet and sort of stretch out on people, and now that I think about it, it's quite fun. And I was just really, really into Chinese massage for ages, and then it just got boring because you get good results with it, but it's very hands-on, obviously, or feet-on, no pun intended. And I think what I tried to have other practitioners. I did have other practitioners that worked with me doing it eventually at my clinic, but it was very hard to find someone who was as good as me, and the patients that I had just did not want to see anybody else, because eventually I found someone who was better than me, and he was able to take all my patients. And then I didn't have to do it anymore because I wanted to focus more on herbs and acupuncture. But what I loved about doing it in China was it was just there was so much camaraderie with all the people doing it. It was just such a fun thing to do. There was, I don't know, it was fun. There was all the other doctors that worked in that area were it was just a good atmosphere. It was just like being in a party time every day, because that photo that you see there's actually there was two other beds in that same room plus 2 desks, and there would have been patients sitting down, patients standing up, all kinds of stuff going on, right? I've got some a little video that I took, but I didn't really take that first trip. I only took about 5 photos there. I didn't even have, many sort of cameras and stuff with me. And there was no iPhones back then, anything like that. Now let me see if I can find this Twainer one. Yeah, I can't see it. Anyway, I'll save that for the next stream. There's a photo that I've got with me doing this surgery Twainer, right, where they basically put the person half under anesthetic, and then 5 guys are kind of pulling on the back, and then another person's working on the front, on the middle of their back. This is like extreme treatment for prolapse discs and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was my my favoritist topic when I first got into Chinese medicine, was probably Chinese massage. Yeah. And in China they don't have other therapies within that field, right? Like in Australia we have physiotherapy, we have osteopathy, we have chiropractic. They don't have any of that. Chinese massage does all those things. So, they're manipulating the back, they're doing all kinds of things that those modalities would do in our country. And the kinds of patients were really serious patients. Like there was one person that I treated in the hospital, went on the ward rounds with one of the doctors, and she had a massive head injury, and they were just giving her acupuncture almost all day long, and then giving Twainer every day, like to sort of help with the rehabilitation. So it's not like massage. It's not like it is in Australia where it's like, oh, you go into this little massage center when your back's sore. They do have that in China, but in the hospital setting, they do see those kinds of patients for sure. Like you've got your prolapse discs, back pains, you've got your frozen shoulders and all those sort of things. But then you've got these people that have got like a brain injury, and they're using Chinese massage to help that rehabilitation. So, yeah. All right, cool. Spice Bear says, my masseur is Chinese and she's a lifesaver. I'm not sure if that's proper Chinese massage, but yeah, well, if it helps you, that's good. Yep. Radiant Fanatic says, question for you. Are you having any... hang on, let me just put this in here. Delete this. Are you having any probiotic foods on the carnivore diet? In TCM, are probiotics necessary, or probiotic-rich foods? Do you think they cause too much heating? I don't think they cause too much heating. They definitely, their purpose is to sort of adjust or change your gut microbiome. So if you have a problem with your gut microbiome, or you think that you do, maybe you go and, some people can even go as far as just doing a stool test, and then they want to introduce something, a probiotic food, a fermented food. So the answer to your question is no. I have some yogurt in the fridge, but I haven't even eaten it this whole time. I just haven't felt like it. So no, I haven't. I've seen people do it on carnivore, and I think that, as in they've used it strategically because they want to improve. So if you do carnivore for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, your bowels are pretty regular, you're not getting constipated, you're already what they call fat adapted. That can take a while, and once that's happened, then you might introduce something like that, but you will probably have a situation with maybe some diarrhea, some explosive diarrhea, while your body gets used to having that new food introduced, because it's so different to what you've been having. And that might be, who knows, it's blasting out stuff out of your your backside that shouldn't have been in there. That's, possibly, but often that kind of diarrhea is like, okay, this is irritating the bowel and we're going to get this out. That's not really a good place to be in all the time. It's okay if it's just here or there. And it's a strategic thing because you've had a bit of that, but people on carnivore will tell you that they will have that, especially if they have a food they're not used to, because your bowels are used to what they're used to, and then you suddenly put something in. A thing a lot of people don't realize is they might poo 3 times a day before carnivore, and then they'll poo once a day, or if they pooed once a day, they might then poo every second day. Now in Chinese medicine, they don't ever think that's a healthy thing to poo. Okay, so let me phrase it this way. It's mostly considered that you need to do a bowel movement once a day. But that's based on people who aren't carnivore. That's based on the Chinese medicine system is not a carnivore-based system. So if your bowels are moving every second day, but there's no constipated symptoms, like you're not straining, you're not feeling as if I want to go, but it can't come out or anything like that. Or when you do go, it's like, oh, there's a lot of pushing. It's really hard to go. Or you think you're going to get a hemorrhoid or something like that. That's not good. And that's not what it's supposed to be like. And so in that case, for carnivore, you'd probably want to have more fat, right? Or if you introduce that probiotic food, it may help adjust things, and then it may, like, it certainly would probably give you a little bit of a push and push some stuff out. And that'd be better than using something really more purgative to get things going, and then see if that restores the microbiome, right? Fermenting in Chinese medicine is a type of cooking. So if you ferment yogurt, it's like less harsh on your body because it's already a bit pre-digested. It's a bit cooked. So yeah, some people find they can't have dairy, but they can have fermented dairy. They could have yogurt, or the other options are for probiotic foods. It would be like kefir, sauerkraut. What else is there? Just put water on me. Kefir, sauerkraut, yeah, that kind of stuff. So I don't think they are necessary, but they can be helpful to re-establish a good gut microbiome, especially let's say not carnivore. If a person's, let's say they just want to eat healthily, and they've gone from eating lots of processed and packet foods, and they feel like their gut is a bit damaged, then maybe let's say they take all that food out, and then they're like, okay, what am I left with here? Now your body's going to be in that state of repair. It really it's trying to repair, and what's great is I'm not bombarding it with all this stuff that's irritating it. So hopefully the signs of inflammation would go down or go away. And it would make sense that then you would slowly, gradually introduce those probiotic foods, fermented foods, to start to re-establish that new gut microbiome, right? If they think they don't have a good gut microbiome, they can actually go and get their stools, do a stool sample test, right? And then they can find that stuff out. Yeah. So they think they can be helpful and they can be used, but if you've already got a good gut microbiome and you're on a carnivore diet, you probably don't need to keep eating that stuff if it's already working good. Like, you might just be messing with the system that's already going good. Yeah. Awesome. So, yeah, Radiant Fanatic says, I'm just sticking to kimchi. Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah, right. And coconut yogurt. Yep. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, that's been good today. Lots of chats and lots of back and forward. I am not sure that I'm going to be able to do these that often. Have we frozen? No, we haven't frozen. I just can't get that thing off the screen. Something's frozen on my side, but the stream's still going. I can't get the question off the screen for some reason. Yeah, so... Oh, yeah. Anyway, I just have to stay there. What was I going to say? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do these streams. I'll probably be able to do this one because this is 7 o'clock on a Friday night, so I'm not sure. But we'll see what happens because I'm going back to my uni teaching. So I've got one class that I do at the moment, but it's going to get really busy in March for me. March, April. April's be very busy. And I don't know if I'll be able to do these streams in addition to a lot of talking during the week with the students. But I'll try and keep doing something. It will just might not be once a week. So I've been doing... The next one next week will be on a Thursday morning Australia time, Wednesday night US time. Yeah, but I appreciate you guys tuning in, and it's great to meet some people and see, you know, who you are a little bit more, and yeah, interesting. So good. All right, so Spice Bear, I answered the question that you had about the PO at the start, but I didn't finish all of it. But what I will do, yeah, I don't know if the phone, I'm just reading the comments. I don't know if I don't know if YouTube ever notify. Like they say, click the notification bell and nothing fucking happens. Like, anyway, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's just lucky, isn't it? If you can find, you're not going to live your whole life on YouTube hoping someone pops up that you want to stream about. You had a question about chemo. Okay, we'll ask you a question now. That's fine. I can keep going, but I just can't get this thing off the screen for some reason. It's just everything's stuck here. My whole computer is stuck, which is bizarre that the stream is still going. Like it's literally, I can't click on anything. But it's still going, so it's just sort of frozen with this other question on the screen. Weird. Anyway, all good. Ask your chemo question. That's fine. Did you ask it before? Because I can't read it now. I can't scroll up in the thing. Oh, Spice Bear asked a question about chemo. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go onto my phone. Oh, great. Post it there. Yeah. So, for some, like my whole screen is frozen. Like, but I can still see myself moving here, and I can move my mouse around, but I won't click on anything. Don't get into it. But are there classical chemo approaches to cancer, or classical Chinese medicine approaches to cancer besides chemo? I do to support people in cancer. Is for sure, definitely, right? But it's one of those things that. There's certain conditions, like in Australia, there's certain conditions where only Western medicine is allowed to claim they can be a treatment for it, right? Which is bizarre in a way, but they've kind of made a list of certain conditions, right? Now that's partly so that people don't get preyed upon and stuff like that, which people do, right? You're really sick, you're looking for answers and stuff like that, right? So cancer is essentially a yin, too much yin with not enough yang. So tumours and masses and growths, now not all cancers are this, but essentially it's a kind of a dampness. Dampness is a yin substance. It's an accumulation, right? Now what we want to do is, if the body was functional, properly functional, then it would be inhospitable to things like cancer. So if it was functional, it would have enough yang. So you want to give it an environment that fosters plenty of yang and without the hindrance of dampness and yin, which is hence why the keto diet it makes complete sense for treating cancer, because it removes all the dampness out of the situation. There's literally, if you're on a keto diet, there's no damp, and that's been shown to be very effective for reducing lots of masses and cancers, and it actually making the effects of chemotherapy better if people do go down that path. Yeah, fruit have some yang in them. Like everything has some yang in it, but I'm talking like warm foods, like hot herbs, warm herbs that are kind of gonna literally blast the cold, which that's kind of the idea, is like if you've got a cancerous mass, you've got yin, cold, lack of yang, you've also got like accumulations of damp. Now the other thing that tumours and masses are, and there's lots of history of treating this classically, because they didn't have any other way to treat it back then. Now they would have done surgeries, because otherwise how would have they seen that people had these masses? Yes, sometimes you can have a mass that's protruding out of somebody as well, but in the Han Dynasty they did cut people open, they did do surgery. People think, oh, they did, the Chinese didn't, but they did do that. So the other classification is what we call blood stasis, and there are actually like the whole group of herbs that treat that are insect herbs. So I'm not saying go and eat some insects if you think you've got a mass, because that would be, it's like you have to starve it, right? So it's the same thing as like, and you see this sort of being paralleled with anti-parasitic medicines. right? Like there's a lot of repurposing or of some anti-parasitic medicines, like thinking could they be used in cancer treatment. That's not Chinese medicine. This is just Western medicine. But that concept, right, to how do you get rid of parasites is you literally make your body inhospitable to those parasites, so they just die and leave. So you have to remove all their food, and what they feed on is sugar, carbs, which turn into sugar, and then you make it hotter, warmer, so that they get the hell out, right? They leave. Now with masses and cancers and stuff, you have to either reduce the mass by like the blood stasis treating herbs, like literally crack away at it slowly by layer, right? So these are not things that would be in any way comparable to Western medicine treatments now, but I'm just saying that they have existed. So I'm not claiming we can treat cancer with herbs, but there is a history of Chinese medicine treating masses, accumulations, lumps, which probably were cancerous masses. Like we don't really know because they didn't have those diagnoses back when they recorded these things in the Han Dynasty. But there's plenty of formulas. Like there's a formula called Didun Tung, which is like an insect, like heavy on the insects, pill that's used to break up these masses. And some of them would have been things like fibroids that are not cancerous necessarily. There can be non-cancerous sort of fibroid masses in the uterus and things like that. And so Chinese medicine does have a pathway of understanding it, and therefore if there's a pathway of understanding it, then there's a pathway for treating something, or to treat the person, I should say, right? But we can't claim to treat cancer in Australia for sure, nor do those ancient methods compare to the results that people would get from Western medicine. But I have seen a few patients where one guy had a brain tumor that was inoperable, and they didn't offer him any other treatment. Now he was looking at other treatment that could have been offered to him in the US, and that's eventually what he went down the pathway of doing. But he came to see me and he was like, I just want to do something. So yes, we would throw everything we've got at that scenario, right? So that it's not like that there's nothing we can do. Now, not every Chinese herbalist is going to be equipped to do that. My teacher in the US, Arno, he sees a lot of cancer patients, and I think he works at a hospital he's got a project that he runs through a hospital in the US to like collect as much data as they can about cancer patients and Chinese herbal medicine things like pulse diagnosis and things like that. So he has a special interest in that area, right? But like most good practitioners aren't going to advise you, just do herbs and don't do any Western medicine. But there are some cases where if there's no Western medicine available to you, then that might be a road that you decide to go down, or you want to enhance your ability to withstand the Western medicine. That's a big one that I have patients see me for. Like they get really bad side effects. I know that's not really your question there, but like chemotherapy induced nausea is one of the main things acupuncture is well documented to treat. Now chemotherapy's got better over the years, so there's less people getting nausea, but it's if you can't keep food down after a few rounds of chemo, then you're going to get weaker and weaker. So just simply helping people in that aspect is really, really beneficial for them to kind of move through the next stages. So we basically want to support people's function as best as they can, given whatever they're bombarding their body with, right? To sort of give them the best chance, depending on what treatments they can have or they're choosing to have. Yeah. So I hope that's enough. I hope that's helpful without me breaking any guidelines explaining that answer to you. Okay, last one. Are dates yin or yang? So there's two kinds of dates. You've got the medjool dates or like just the foodie kind of dates. Are they yin or yang? Yeah, gee, I haven't really I wouldn't classify them as yin or yang, but red dates, they're probably more yin than yang, right? Because when you cook, so red dates are definitely a big herb in Chinese medicine. I wasn't doing carnivore, I'd eat one right now. They're very delicious. Right, now these are a blood tonic type of a herb in a way, because they're red. But what blood do they tonify? What blood do they work on? Heart blood. So these are very calming, like peaceful for you, right? So that is the flavor of sweet, does have that nature. So when you cook these up, the liquid is very thick and syrupy, and that's kind of how we know they're probably more yin actually than yang. They're not, the jujube dates, that's what they are, red dates. Normal dates are probably similar, but I just don't think the liquid would be as red. Actually, when I say red, it's not, it's kind of going to be a yellowy looking reddish liquid. I do this often with my students in the class. Like, I'll bring a little teapot and I'll put these in on a little burner, so it kind of heats it over about 2 hours, and then afterwards I'll show them, look how thick that liquid gets, how thick that syrupy that tea gets. Now, what do the dates do? They're calming you. They're calming your mind, and they're often used in Chinese herbal formulas to increase fluids, to have that sort of calming effect on the shen, on the mind. They're used a lot in cold and flu formulas, like, because you've sweated, so you need to put some fluids back in once you've sweated. They're not as replenishing fluids as something like ginseng, renshen, but they're still on the side of doing that. So they're definitely not, they're more like a bland, sweet. They're not a pungent flavor or anything like that, and that's a yang. So the flavors that you have are pungent and I think sweet is a yang flavor, actually. Sweet and pungent, and then bitter is a yin flavor. Salty is a yin flavor. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, when you say are they yin or yang, I'm not sure what you're meaning. Like, they're not a yang tonic, if that's what you're asking. But because they're sweet, it is a yang flavor. But they're more yin than yang, than a pungent food, right? Pungent flavors are the ones that are the most yang tonic flavors. But not all, like not all flavors, not all pungent foods are yang tonics. To throw in something, one of those things like in the Neijing, how it's like all things are like this except for the things that aren't, but then the things that aren't are also like that. Anyway, I hope that does make sense. All right, so I'll probably end the stream now. Thanks, everyone. I think I'm just going to have to put my computer off from the wall, because it just literally will not. It's just kind of all frozen. All right, have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining the stream, or a day, and we'll catch you again on another stream in a few weeks, hopefully, and then we won't be doing one for a little while. Right, how are we going to stop this? Just stop it like this.